Hey fellow believers, this is Kareem Walker with the Believer's Journey. Welcome to my channel. If you're brand new here and you like to hear God's Word and you like to hear stories of religious history or different religious factions, things like that, and every once in a while confronting someone who says something that's in grievous error, especially if they claim to be a teacher, stick around, hit the subscribe button. You're very welcome. If you're a believer, you're already a part of my family. So, welcome, brothers and sisters, to my channel. If you're not a believer but you enjoy the stories or the history or whatever, you're also welcome to stay and subscribe and hit thumbs up or thumbs down. That helps me to know whether or not people like it. Leave me comments. I need to know, what you guys would like to hear and learn about. Stuff like that. Today I'm going to do an overview of the Amish people because I've watched a lot of videos on social media that talk about the Amish people, and I've noticed that they go from one extreme to the other. You have those that say that the Amish people are perfect. They don't do anything wrong practically. I mean, if you hear some of these documentaries, they talk about they're very strict. They basically pray and work, and they play only certain games, and some of that's true. And they don't socialize with the outside world and then you hear the other side where they say, oh, they're idol worshippers and child traffickers, and they sell their wives to have sex with Englishers and stuff like that. So I decided that because I do live in an Amish community, I've been here for a little while now, and I have driven the Amish, I have been in their homes, I've broke bread with the Amish, had dinner with them, for you younger people who wouldn't know what that means to break bread with someone. I've talked to them. I've asked them questions because I've let some of my friends know that I'm going to do this show. They've asked me questions, and I asked them so that I could get an answer that's from the actual horse's mouth, so to speak. So this much I will tell you, though. I can only tell you what I've heard or witnessed for myself, and I can only speak for the communities that I have witnessed. That would be the communities I live in and the communities I've been to, because I've been to weddings and funerals and things like that, so I've witnessed things. Now, I am an outsider, so it is an outsider's perspective, okay? So let me start out. I'm trying to think of everything that I could possibly have to say, and I'm probably going to miss a bunch, so there will probably be some follow-up videos about the Amish, because I'm going to think of something after I'm done and say, oh, I should have told him this. Some things are true. I live in an old order Amish community. The Amish that are around me are old order. They're horse and buggy. They do not embrace modern technology. To some extent, from a worldly point of view, they are very strict. I don't know, because, I mean, yes, they do have their religious teachings, and they are very strict about those. They don't discuss a lot of their religious teachings with outsiders. That much I can tell you. There are some things they will share, other things they're not going to share as easily. That's just the way they are. So where to start? So I'm going to start with some of the more obvious things, and that would be the clothing that they wear. The reason that, excuse me, I guess I should have got the Bible verses together for this, but you guys can look these things up. Otherwise, I'll do another show and give you all the Bible verses. The reason the women dress the way they do. The women in my community and most of the communities, okay, this is what is common amongst the old order Amish communities. They wear caps, a covering for their hair. They wear dresses and aprons. Um, Now, there are differences between communities, and that depends upon what the ordnung, which is what their elders in their community came up with to decide what is permissible and what is not permissible. Some things are clean cut, clear across the board with all of them, and that is women wear dresses and head coverings. The men wear their outfits. What is different is their caps, depending upon the community, may look a little different. Some have some that kind of look like a see-through netting. Some where there's further back on their head than others. Some wear white even on Sunday. In my community, they wear their white cap, but they also have a black cap that they wear over it. Okay. Um, in my community, they do not wear buttons on their clothes. If you were to look closely at their clothing, which I would not suggest you do this, okay? Don't get too close and be looking, because they're going to be like, what is wrong with you? They use safety pins to pin it together instead of buttons. Some communities do use Velcro, but the community I live in, they view that as being modern technology. They have shoes that have shoelaces. Some of the women, I'm trying to remember their shoes, but some have tie shoes, some have like a loafer type of shoe, and that they have certain clothes that they call Sunday clothes. They're good clothes that they only wear on Sunday. They look the same as their other clothes. Okay. The ones I deal with, most of them are very clean. They keep their clothes very clean. I mean, when they're working, of course, they get dirty. That's why they don't wear their Sunday clothes during the week, because they get very dirty from the work they do. They are passive. They don't believe in defending themselves against aggression. They do believe in horse and buggy, but they do hire drivers to drive them to town, or, to take them out of state to weddings and funerals, which I've done. They do make a lot of their foods homemade. They grow gardens. All of that stuff's true, and they do it the old-fashioned way with the horse and, the machinery behind it, pulling the plow and all that stuff. They still do it that way, and they still do it with a hoe and a rake and all that good stuff. They have their country stores, which I love to shop at, because their spices are out of this world, and their yeast is awesome. I mean, I love when I make bread with their yeast and stuff like that. So back to the clothing. The reason that the women wear caps is because it says in the Bible that a woman, when she's praying, should have her head covered. The Bible also tells us to pray without ceasing. Therefore, a woman should always have her head covered, because she should always be praying, Obviously, I agree with that, and so I wear my own kind of covering. I don't necessarily believe it has to be a certain kind of cap or something like that. The women in my community, and I believe most of the old order Amish, do not believe in a woman cutting her hair, and I agree with that. I started being like that before I met the Amish. I read about women should have long hair, and since then I've been trying. I have not cut my hair since I decided that. I knew about the verse before then, but when I decided I was going to follow God 100%, I decided I would not cut my hair. Okay. A woman's hair is a glory to God. Amish women tend to pin their hair up. Obviously, I don't. And that's because they believe that their hair down should only be for their husband to see. That's part of their thing, and I haven't read anything, and it just could be that I haven't noticed it, but for right now, that's kind of the way it is. Anyway, um, I had a friend who told me that Amish women are stuck up. I found that surprising. And I said, why do you think Amish women are stuck up? And he said, well, I've seen them at the markets and stuff, and they don't talk. And so my question to them was, did you talk to them? And they were like, well, no. Well, then maybe you were the one that was stuck up. I forgot I was talking about clothes. I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place here. The women wear dresses because it says that a woman should wear women's clothes, and in their opinion, that's women's clothes. I don't agree with that, obviously. I'm not following that, which I'll do a thing about women's clothing and men's clothing another time, because this is about the Amish. But I'm not here to discuss whether I agree or disagree with them. I'm just explaining where they're coming from. The women wear dresses. They wear the aprons to help keep their dresses clean. Now, different communities have different aprons and different dresses. Some have like more like a pleated style of a dress. It's not really pleated, but it's kind of looks like that. And some have just a very straight, very it depends upon the community, but they all wear dresses. Some wear different colors like blue and green, and it's a purple, but it's not a bright purple. It's more like a burgundy color. They'll wear things like that. Some communities will only allow black and gray and maybe like a light blue or something. It just depends on the community. That's a thing. A lot of this depends on which community you're looking at. I'm sure I could get a lot of comments saying, well, in the community I live in, this is what, Well, I can't speak for every community because I have not been to every community. I've met people from different communities. I've talked with them. Not necessarily get information from them, but just talking to them, and I learn things. I consider the ones in my community my friends. I'm very loyal to them. And they're loyal to me too. To a degree. To be honest, I am an outsider. There are certain things they're never going to share with me. And I'm okay with that because there's certain things about my life I have no intention of sharing with them. So we're on a kind of even scale there, That's the other thing, people, you say, well, they don't share, they're not open. Well, how much do you share about your life with strangers? They are old school, so to speak. So when you go up to, like, say, at a farmer's market or something, and you see a man and woman standing there together, and you're a man, talk to the man. Why are you talking to his wife or his mother or whatever? I mean, if the woman's there doing the selling, of course talk to her at a farmer's market because she's selling. But I'm saying if you're just walking up to a couple, not too kosher to be talking to the wife while the husband's standing right there. Why can't you just speak to the husband first and then say hello to her? I mean, don't be rude, but if a strange man comes up to me and starts talking to me, I'm going to kind of stand back and be like, what do you want? Especially if I was standing there with my husband. Why is he talking to me when my husband's standing right here? I'm probably going to pat my husband's arm and say, this guy wants something. Englishers, which is what they call us because we speak English. That's why they call us that. We think differently than they do on a lot of things, okay? Oh, yeah, men's clothes. Let me touch on that real quick. They do have their hats. They either have their straw hats, which is usually what they're wearing when they're working and stuff, although some of them do wear their other hats. They have their Sunday hats, and then they have their regular everyday hats, and they vary. And at least in this community, I don't think there's like any special rule about which hat the man can wear on which day, except the Sunday hats. Uh, in this community, the men wear suspenders. They don't have buttons, like I said, and I really haven't looked close enough to find out what they do use, and I'll ask them, but I'm not looking that close, okay? As far as, how they button their pants and that, I'm not looking that close. Sorry, guys. I am not that inquisitive. If they tell me, great. Otherwise, I'm not even sure how I'm going to bring that question up. So if y'all ask that one, I'm probably just going to show them that you asked the question. So just so you know that. I noticed that on some of the documentaries, people were saying how they wanted to become Amish. And I did reply and say, you really need to look within yourself to find out, why do you want to become Amish? Is it their sense of community that you want? Why not create that within your own community? Is it that you feel they're closer to God because of the way they live? Because you can be just as close to God as they are. Okay? Is it the horse and buggy thing? Well, you could learn how to drive a horse and buggy. Here's the thing that you got to understand. They are passive for the most part. I do know a few that said they would defend themselves, but I'm not going to name them or, anything. But picture being in a horse and buggy and you're going home after being in town. You went to the store with your horse and buggy and you're on your way back. And your horse and buggy gets hit by a car who was driving carelessly and kills your wife and children. Or kills your husband and children. I don't know if you're a man or woman watching this, but kills your loved ones. Or you're at home and somebody's driving a horse and buggy and it's one of your family members or several of your family members that get killed. How are you going to feel? How are you going to react to that? You need to remember, the Amish don't sue. You don't get reimbursed. Because they believe it ain't going to bring the dead back, so what's the point? They also believe that the Bible says, why do you go to court? Do you not know that the same people that you're going to court, that, the people in the courts and that, the government basically, that they drag you into court? These same people drag you into court. They come against you. I'm not quoting it perfectly, but that's why they don't do the whole suing thing. So if you're Amish, first of all, most old order Amish, you got to learn to speak Pennsylvania Dutch. You don't sue, so you get nothing in return. No, some insurance companies do pay the medical bills and stuff, but you don't get any other compensation, and not that compensation does any good anyway. It doesn't bring back your loved ones. You basically got to take it. There's no sort of revenge. You have to figure out a way to get rid of that anger, because the Amish way of life is you forgive. So that is a big thing, and they really believe it. I'm telling you, I've talked to them about, I'm not going to go into any of their personal things, because I do believe that they told it to me in confidence, and that's the way it's going to stay. But I do know that they really truly believe in forgiving somebody who does them wrong. And so that's something you better be willing to embrace. Now, people mention giving up their worldly goods. I don't know if they think they're becoming a Catholic nun or a Catholic priest, but you're kind of mixing up a few things. Some things, yes, you would give up. Technology, you would have to give up, yes. Cars, stuff like that. It's not like they sleep on the floor. It's not like, some of the Amish homes I've been in, once again, depends on the community, have had very, very nice things. That would make many fancy homes look plain. because their idea of plain and our idea of plain are two completely different things. Okay. If something is trending, they consider it fancy. Okay. But there are things that they have some woodworking stuff that is so gorgeous. It's not what I would call plain. They call it plain because it's hand carved, or it's not done with modern machinery, or it's not something that's trending. Okay, so that kind of stuff they call plain, even though you and I would not call it plain. uh they have some very beautiful things. Sometimes they don't hang pictures and stuff on their walls. They don't. Depending on the community, I've been in communities where they allow their children have dolls just like your children have dolls with the faces and all. Others have faceless dolls. So that depends on the community, because I've heard a lot of people have asked me about that, and I tell them it depends on the community. It really does. I'm trying to think, because I'm trying to remember all the questions that people have asked me. I should have wrote them all down. But Uh, oh, one thing one of the Amish men asked me to let all of you know, because evidently there is this misconception out there, so I want to make sure I do this. He said, make sure to tell the people we pay taxes. Well, I used to work as a tax preparer for H&R Block, so I knew this already, okay, because we have a special thing when it's an Amish person, because a lot of them don't have Social Security cards. So we put in if they're Amish, we just type in Amish, and then it brings up a bunch of stuff. So I know they pay taxes. There's no provisions for them. The only thing is they understand that the government understands that a lot of them don't have Social Security numbers. So that's the only provision made for them. Other than that, they pay taxes on everything that they do. The only thing that they don't pay, the Englishers pay, is Social Security tax. And the reason is they don't draw Social Security. When they get too old to work, their family takes care of them. They have, which a lot of you probably know if you've read Amish stories, they have what they call a dowdy house, where they build a small house, either attached to the house or close by the house. Here in my community, it's been mainly a separate house that's close by, and either a son or son-in-law lives in the big house, and the elderly live in the smaller house, because it's easier to clean and maintain and all that for an older couple. But yet they're still close by. They maintain their independence for as long as they can, but they have family close by to help them if they need it. And usually they have an extra room. I haven't been in one Amish house yet that doesn't have an extra room. Not even kidding. In the Dowdy houses, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong because they were always giving me crap about my accent or dialect when I try to say their words. They have the extra room sometimes just for when they do need help. They have grandchildren that can come over and help them. Now they are very responsible. They teach their children from very young to do their chores. In our community, from the time a baby girl is born, she starts wearing a cap. The caps are made for them right away. So by the time they're old enough to have to wear the cap, they're already used to it. The young girls in our community wear the caps, and they always wear the caps. Now, they do wear kerchiefs sometimes and, scarves and that, but when they're out in public, they wear caps, and including the young children, and if you look, the little babies have them on too. So some of the documentaries said that they don't do it till they're teenagers, but in my community and the communities I've witnessed, they wear caps from the time they're born, and that continues till the time they die. I'm trying to think of what else I want to share with you guys. They are very community based, but they're also independent of each other. Each one is responsible, has their own financial responsibilities. They don't have a community fund like Hutterites, and there are some communal living things of Mennonites and Amish where everything goes into a community pot. Most of them, though, they're independent. They each are responsible for their own finances, their own, you know, taking care of finances, and they are expected to take care of their own finances. Okay. Um, the bishop, at least in our community, is a very friendly guy. I didn't even know that he was a bishop. I talked to him for probably months before I finally found out he was a bishop and went, whoops, I didn't know that. Not that I had said anything wrong, but it's like I had always been taught, and I was not grown up Catholic, but I'd always been taught there was a certain reverence given towards pastors and bishops and all that. They don't have that type of an attitude. They do listen to their bishop, and they do listen to their deacons, and I believe they have ministers, but I'm not sure of that word, so don't quote me on that one. But they do have bishops and deacons, and they do listen to them and take advice from them and go to them for counseling and guidance, just like anybody does in any church. They're taken advantage of a lot. But the other thing that you need to recognize is they're not perfect. Some do really try to live according to the Bible. They try their best to do what they need to do. One good friend of mine, Amish friend of mine, I was talking to him and he said, all I can do is the best that I can do, and I hope it's enough for God. Now, he doesn't believe that his salvation is earned that way, but he does hope that he pleases God. At least that was my understanding. The community I lived in does not believe in smoking or drinking. I don't think any of them really go along with drinking, except for maybe like an elderberry wine to soothe your stomach. You know, they have there's a couple of very mild wines that they use for basically like when Paul told Timothy to take some wine for his stomach. But for medicinal purposes, that's not to say that there aren't some that take advantage of that. That's saying what the ordinance or what the rules are, okay? But like I said, they're not perfect. And some of the things they tell me, I'm not sure if they're telling me the truth or not, because they also love to talk a lot of crap. They love to give me crap all the time. Every single time, I swear there's one of them that does something that makes me go, what? You know, they're always cracking jokes. They got me laughing a lot. So they're not just these stiff, bored, proper people. When you see them in a public place and you don't know them, yeah, pretty much they'll do that. But they are big-time jokesters. They love to pull pranks. One time I pulled up to pick up a couple, and this Amish elder guy came walking out. There were some young guys standing around visiting each other, and he came out and said, they already left. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, they said that they figured you weren't coming, so they went and got another ride. And I said, And he started laughing, and then the young men started laughing, and he said, now they're in the house. And so they love to pull pranks, and they love to mess with you, just like anybody. The community I'm in, they love to play volleyball, and they play other games too, but I haven't quite stopped and watched, okay? They do have their schoolhouse, and they do teach their children up to 8th grade. But truthfully, a lot of what they learn up to 8th grade, some of our children haven't even learned when they got to 12th grade. Okay? So, Most of the children speak Pennsylvania Dutch. A lot of them don't even understand English until they're going to school. They usually start school between the ages of 6 and 7, and they're taught English in school. There are some that do speak English. I know some of them too. In my community, that is left up to the parents. That's not up to the church, whether or not they learn the language, okay? They all speak Pennsylvania Dutch, but whether or not they learn English before they go to school is up to each individual parent. As for Amish men selling their wives to English men to have sex with them because supposedly of some incest thing that they don't want to have too much inbreeding, let me clarify this for you a little bit. In my community, I have not witnessed anything like that. When I brought it up to them, there were varied reactions, but all of them were of shock, disgust. Now, mind you, I just threw it out there to see how they'd react, okay? And they were like, like you could have knocked them over with a feather, okay? I don't believe it happens in my community. Obviously, I don't know what goes on in anybody's bedroom, but I see the children and they look like their fathers. They're Christians, so I would have to say they don't believe in committing adultery. As far as this incest thing that people bring up about the Amish, that they're all too closely related, there are over 200, I believe it's over 250,000 Amish in this country. One documentary said that they meet each other in their communities. Now, some do. I know some that have married a young lady that grew up in the same community. I also know some who have met people outside of their communities and have married them. I know a young lady who grew up here in Tennessee, and when she got married, she married a man from Missouri. They're definitely not related to each other. And this is more common, that they meet their bride-to-be or their husband-to-be at a wedding or a funeral. Weddings, a lot of them, they have a very, whoa, messed up my hair there. They have a very peculiar custom. I don't think it's peculiar, actually. I think it's kind of cool. I think it looks like it would be a lot of fun. It would have been fun for me to do that anyway. The bride and groom pick for the single people, for a single man and woman to sit together at a table, when they're having their dinner. And they get announced at the thing, when they're getting ready to have the dinner or the singing afterwards. And sometimes they end up being a couple and getting married. Sometimes they just end up joking around, laughing and going their separate ways. But I do know of a couple that actually met and ended up getting married that way. Many of the communities, if a man wants to ask a woman out, he does not ask her directly. Now, there are some that do, but in most cases, they usually have somebody else, usually a family member of the woman's. They'll go to them and say, will you ask her if she'll go for a buggy ride with me? Will she go riding with me, or will she go here with me? And they will go ask the young lady. Now, I asked a couple of Amish women, well, how would you feel if the man came up and asked you? And the one woman said to me, well, I don't know how I would respond to that. I would think that would be too forward. And she said, I would wonder what his motives were and why was he coming to me instead of going to one of my family members. So it's pretty common, at least around here, for the man to have somebody in the woman's family go up and ask. That's my understanding. Like I said, they could be messing with me too. But I think that's probably the way it is, because I ask people, how did you meet? How did you meet? Okay. And And some will directly ask. It depends. The younger ones may not be as old-fashioned as the older ones. It all depends. Rumspringa, another thing that people talk about all the time. That is not the same in every community. Okay, sometimes Rumspringa is just merely where they're just. Excuse me for a second. Rumspringa is just basically running around, but they don't really run around. They haven't made a choice to join the church yet, so they try out different things. It's, most of them don't even leave the community. They just kind of do whatever. I mean, I know that some have gotten cars. I haven't seen any in our community get a car, but then again, they wouldn't tell me something like that. But of course, before they get married, they do join the church because they can't get married until they join the church. It's usually not up to the parents in this community, at least, of who marries their child once their child is over 18. It's up to the individuals. However, the parents will weigh in. They'll tell their child, I don't think you should be hanging out with this person. Just like any parent would, they'll give their opinion. Once the deal is done, it's done. Because what God is joined together, let no man put asunder. They don't believe in divorce. Once you're married, you're married. If your spouse leaves you and leaves the Amish and leaves you and your children, the community will help you, especially if you're a woman with children and your husband has left. But even if it's the other way around, the community will help. Like if it was a husband that was left with his children, the women in the community would help to take care of the children and stuff like that and do the things that the woman normally would have done. Usually it'll be family members of his. If the man leaves, the community will help to support the woman because she's got to take care of her children and take care of her house and her household. But she will still do things like some do quilting, some do baking and selling their baked goods. They'll do their part to try to make as much money as they can to support themselves because, like I said, they are independent, but yet they're community also. When tragedy strikes, the community comes together. And I'm not sure that it's out of reverence for God, because I don't know the heart of man, or if they're just doing what tradition has taught them. I can't speak for the motives of each and every individual, but they do come together as a community, and it's awesome to see. I've witnessed them do fundraisers to help pay for medical bills for a woman who lost her husband to cancer, and she had outstanding medical bills, and the church held a fundraiser to help with some of those costs. I've watched them when the husband was sick. The men took turns going over there and doing the chores that he would have normally done. Things like that. When there is a funeral, the women in the community will all get together, not get together, but they all make food and take it over to the house so that the surviving woman, spouse, or if it was whatever it may be, they always bring food. Just like we used to do in the olden days. My grandmother used to tell me stories of things like that. Oh, excuse me. They bring over food so that the loved ones, the immediate family, do not have to. That's one less thing they got to worry about is cooking. And the men will usually come over and take care of any chores so that nobody has to worry about, those kind of things during their time of mourning. They have way better turnouts at weddings and funerals than most English weddings and funerals, okay? I mean, I've been blown away. And some of the weather that they will go through to go to a wedding or funeral. Wow. I've been at weddings, they're sitting outside and it is hotter than the dickens. And I'm turning on my car because I need the AC. And they're sitting out there in those dresses, and those are not no dresses that you want to be sitting in the hot sun with. and the men are wearing suits that I'm like, I don't even know how they're, you know, still conscious. I figured they would have passed out from the heat. Uh, and I've also seen very cold, snowy, blizzardy weather. They will go, you know. Um, these are very major events in their lives. Funerals, another thing. They will do whatever they can to get to a funeral. I love being around the Amish people. I love the things I witness and see, the brotherly love I witness. And if it's not brotherly love, I'm not the one to judge the motives in their heart. But this is how I witness it. The brotherly love I see is beautiful. The things that I've seen them do for each other is wonderful. I'm grateful for the things they've done to help me and my family. I'm grateful for knowing them and having a friendship with them. And I once thought it was kind of cool too, and I once was enamored by the Amish. Now that I've gotten to know them better and consider them my friends, I'm not enamored by them. They're just people. They're people who wear different clothes than us. They live a different kind of lifestyle. Their culture's a little bit different than ours. But they're people. There's bad and good. Oh, I also saw a comment by somebody that said, oh, I wouldn't mind doing business with the Amish because they're honest and they wouldn't try to rip me off. Just because they're wearing Amish clothes doesn't mean that they're necessarily living the way God wants them to. They'll tell you in a heartbeat that there are some bad Amish people. Amish does not mean Christian, though they should be. There are some that slip through the cracks. They have a different way of reasoning things out than we do. They figure if they're bartering with you and they can barter you down to near to nothing, they will, because they figure that if you do that, you must be able to afford that. And you must still be coming out at a profit, because if you weren't, you wouldn't have bartered down that low. But they're going to barter to the best of their ability and to be able to come out ahead in a deal, just like anybody else. They don't consider it dishonest when you're trying to barter with them. Some will go down in price a little bit and some won't. And some will tell you they can't because then they make no profit, which is not always the truth. However, in their mind, it is the truth, because to them, if it's not so much, then it's not a profit. Okay, so that's what you got to understand. What we say is honesty and what they say is honesty may not be the same. We consider if you made 10 cents more than what it cost you, you made a profit. They consider if they made what they consider to be a profit, then it's a profit. Otherwise, they didn't make a profit. And so when you're doing business with them, realize they're people just like you and I, and they're gonna try to get the best deal like anybody else. They don't try to Okay, I'm speaking of the good Amish here. They don't try to rip anybody off, but they do try to get the best deal they can, and they are not purposely dishonest. It's just like the term plain. What we would consider plain, they would not necessarily consider plain. Same thing with their perspective on honesty. Well, what do you consider a profit? You know, if they think they need to make $2 off of this item in order to break even, to them breaking even is if they can pay their bills with what they've made from sales, then they've broken even. They're not saying break even as the same way we would, as in, well, it cost me this much and my time and da da da, and this is how much it is for me, so if I sell it for this much, I broke even. They consider it as, am I able to pay my bills from what I sold. If not, then I didn't break even. Then I had a loss. So it's understanding that their definition of things may not be the same as yours and my definition of things. And when you get to understand that, you understand they are being honest. But it may not be what you consider honesty because of what you consider your definition of things. By the way, they're not into child sex trafficking either. Children are very valuable to them, not just for a work thing like many of them try to say either. They consider that children are exactly what Jesus said, such as the kingdom of heaven. They consider children very valuable because they're God's gift, and that's what they tell their children. God gave us a gift. You now have another brother or sister. They don't discuss pregnancy with their children. I learned that the hard way. They do not tell their children, mommy's pregnant or mommy's going to have a baby. The first time it's discussed with the children, at least in this community, some communities are different, as I said before, is when the baby's born. That's the first time it's discussed with the children. You now have a baby sister. God has given us this gift. So the subject of where do babies come from really doesn't come up with them. They learn at a very young age. That's not something we discuss, or they're told that children are God's gift, which they are. So children are looked upon and valued very much in the Amish community. And for people out there that suggest that they're into child trafficking is a horrible, horrible, horrible accusation. I can't even imagine why somebody would do that, except that they're a bunch of bullies, because Amish don't go on the computer. Amish don't see what you guys say. And even if they did, they wouldn't defend themselves. So calling them idol worshippers, saying they carry around a wooden idol, like David Hevner said, okay, yep, I'm going to name that name because that was horrible that you would even say something so horrible about the Amish people. First of all, they don't have a church building. They don't have a building where they go to worship like that. They worship in private homes, okay? And I've been all over this community, and I guarantee there's no place where there's any wooden idol. The leaders don't get together in a special building. They get together in each other's homes. I've been in their homes. There's no idols there, okay? To say horrible things about people who can't and won't defend themselves, to purposely lie on somebody, is a horrible thing. And I really wasn't planning on addressing this tonight, but being as I'm talking about Amish, I figured, what the heck, I may as well. To say the things that you have said about Amish people, for you to bring a man on there that says that Amish women have talked to you men about personal problems they're having with their husbands, supposedly domestic abuse. Not saying that doesn't happen, and even when I talk to the Amish about this, they said, well, it doesn't happen that we know of. In our home, it don't happen, and it doesn't happen in anybody's home that I know of. But to suggest that women, see, this is how I know, this is why I believe it's a lie. They don't go out talking to other men about problems with their husbands. Most of the time, they would talk to other Amish women. But even if they were to discuss an issue they have with their husbands, it wouldn't be with another man. It would be with a woman. So to insinuate that they're talking to strange men, men who are not related to them, men who are not Amish, and discuss something as sensitive as domestic abuse, I don't believe it. And I know some pretty outgoing Amish women, and they still would not discuss their issues with an Englishman. Okay. I have had very few personal discussions about their marriage problems ever. I've heard a few things, but, and no, I'm not discussing that either. That's nobody's business but theirs. But I can assure you, it would not be something they would tell a man. Does not happen like that. So I think it's atrocious that you come off as a Christian and then you lie about other Christians. I've heard these stories about they supposedly hire Englishers to have sex with their wives because they don't want the incest thing. I don't believe that either. I know it doesn't happen in my community because the children, most of them look like their dads. And I saw the reaction when I brought it up to them. And there's no idols in our community. And I don't believe there's idols in anybody else's community because, first of all, they don't have a church building to have this idol in, and they don't have a special building where elders meet. None of this kind of stuff that was hinted at. And I think it's horrible and atrocious that you would say that about a people, that you would willingly lie and distort the truth to make somebody look bad. That's a terrible thing, and I can't believe that anybody would do something like. I should believe it. I mean, I know that this world is more and more evil all the time. It just always blows my mind when somebody in the name of Christ will go and lie on a people, on a fellow sister or brother in Christ. Doesn't matter if their lifestyle's a little bit different. There are sisters and brothers in Christ. There's bad and good just like us. They have fun. They make good food. And they love music. It's just maybe not the same music that you love, but and they're great at singing a cappella. They're just like you and I. They just dress differently for their reasons. And in their mind, they have good sound reasons for it. And I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong because I have no right to. For those of you that are considering becoming Amish because you think that this is a wonderful life, leave me a comment. I'd really like to talk to you guys. Because if you really strongly want to, I have no problem with checking into it for you. But you really should really look within yourself and find out why. Why do you want to? Is it the sense of community? Is it because you think you can somehow be closer to God by becoming Amish? Is it their lifestyle? What is it that makes you want to become Amish? Okay. There's probably many more issues, but I've been on here almost an hour talking about this. If you want to know specific things, put them in the comments, and I'd be more than happy to do another show. I love talking about my friends. They are great people. But once again, they're people. Until the next time, leave comments, and I'd be more than happy to either answer them in the comments section, or if there's enough comments, I will do another show to address your questions. Until the next time, God bless you all. Take care. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Either way, it helps me to know whether or not you guys like the shows I'm putting out. Till the next time, God bless you all. Take care.